Hello everyone. So we are going to start a new series on this channel which is JSInterview30. So we are going to cover 30 problems which are asked in JavaScript or machine coding rounds or front-end engineering interview rounds at various different companies. The first problem in this series is longest palindrome in a given string. So what this entails is we need to find the longest palindrome for a given input string which is provided in the example. So this session will be divided into 4 parts. First, we will try to understand the problem. Then we will try to understand the different approaches which we can use to solve the problem. And then finally, we will come up with the solution to the problem in JavaScript and understand the code using an example. So that's the overall agenda for the day. So the problem statement for this problem is as such. Palindrome is a word that is same read forward and backward. For example, racecar and madam are palindromes. So what we need to do is we need to return the longest palindrome in a given string. If there are multiple palindromes of same length, then return the first one. If the input is empty or has no palindromes, then return an empty string. For example, let's just say we have longest palindrome with abracadabra as the input. Then we need to return ACA, which is the middle string, which is a palindrome. Similarly, in the second example, we have the numeric string as the palindrome, and in the third example, we have no palindrome, that is why we are returning the empty input string. So this is what the problem statement of the problem is. Now in the next part of the session, let's focus on the approaches to solve this problem. So there are different approaches. The first approach is obviously a brute force approach. So in this approach, what we do is we take a substring of the input string and we check whether it is a palindrome or not. So from start to end, we generate different combinations of characters from the string and we check if they are palindromes and then compare the length with the current maximum length of the palindrome. So let's just say if you find a palindrome, then in the next iteration if you find a longer palindrome, then update it and then return the longest palindrome. So this approach has a time complexity of O of n cube and space complexity of O of 1. The second approach is dynamic programming. In this we create a 2D array of size n cross n where each cell dp of ij represents whether a substring from index I to j is a palindrome or not. If the array is filled from bottom up manner starting from diagonal cells where I is equal to j, which are always palindromes of length 1, then the cells where I is equal to j plus 1 are filled, which are the palindromes of length 2, then the corresponding characters are equal. Finally, we will check whether the rest of the cells are filled by checking if the characters at the end are equal and in the substring is also a palindrome. The longest palindrome in this approach is by keeping a track of maximum length and starting index of the palindrome. This approach has a complexity of O of n square and space complexity of O of n square. Now let's try to understand these approaches with code. So for the implementation part, let's try to understand the brute force approach. So let's just say there is a is palindrome function defined. So in this we take an input string and we iterate from the start of the string to the middle of the string, and during the each pass we compare the character which is from the starting and the end position. For example, in the first pass we check the first character with the last character. If they are the same, then our string might be a valid palindrome. Then we move toward the second and the second last character and we compare them till we reach the middle. If in any of the passes if the characters are not same, then the string is not palindrome, so we return false, else we return true. Then we have the longest palindrome function. So we initialized a variable longest, which is the longest current palindrome. Then we have a max length, which is another variable. So we start from I is equal to 0 till str.length, and we start j loop, which is the inner loop, from j is equal to str.length minus 1, which is the end of the string, till the I, and we decrement the j pointer and we increment the I pointer. Then during each pass we take the substrings of the palindromes, like we take the substring from I, substrings of the input string, like we take the substring from I to j plus 1, which is the entire string during the first pass, and we check if it is a palindrome, and if it is a palindrome and if the substring length is greater than max length, which is the maximum current length of the palindrome, then we set the longest to sub and the max length to sub dot length, and then we go on iterating till we find the maximum palindrome and then we return the longest. Let's try to understand this with an example in the next part of our explanation. So let's try to understand the example code, the sample code with an example. So let's just say we have a string which is abracadabra. So during the pass of the abracadabra string to our function. The first thing is the is palindrome function. It will return true if the string input string is a palindrome or false otherwise. For example, a racecar, it will check the R and R, A and A, C and C, and since they are same, it will return true. Similarly, for banana, B and A, which is the first and the last A, they are not same, that will return false. In the longest palindrome, what we do is we take the string as an argument and we return the longest palindrome. So in this case, what we do is we generate the different substrings using the I and the j loop. So in the first pass, the abracadabra till A, so just the first row in this string. So the first string that we take is abracadabra, and we go on continuing till we reach the A that is mentioned in the first row here. So in that case, the longest palindrome is checked, and if palindrome is found, it is saved. Then we start from the next second character, and then we again continue on making the combinations till the combination which is possible, and then we check the palindromes in those substrings, and once we find the longest palindromes, we go on updating the values in max length and the palindrome. In this case, the three possible palindromes that we get are A, ACA and ADA. From this, the longest one which is found first is ACA, which has a length of 3. Therefore, the function will return the output ACA as the output. Let's try to understand this with the actual example in CodePen. So this is the same code which we just discussed, and it is now copied into CodePen. Now the input that I have passed is the same, which is abracadabra, and as you can see, we have the output which is ACA. Let's try to understand this working by console.log the sub. So I am going to console.log the substring. And now let's try to see what are the different subs possible. So as you can see, during the first pass we take the entire string, then we go on decreasing the substrings using the and j loop, and then we check whether they are palindromes, and if they are palindromes, then we go on saving them, and finally what we get is the final palindrome, which is ACA. So this is how this code implementation works. Hope you found this example useful, and that brings us to the conclusion of this session, where we understood how to generate longest palindrome using brute force approach. In the next part of the series, we will try to understand this using the dynamic programming. So stay tuned. If you found this video useful, then hit the like button, comment on this video if you have any feedback, or if you found any other solution to this problem, and subscribe to the channel for more such videos in future. Thank you. Have a nice day. Goodbye.